I played 2 years in LFL. First year I won a lot, second year a bit less, but I got MVP. And it was really nice experience, and the French fans are really great, and honestly it's just a really good community, and I'm really happy that I spent all these years in France.
Well, while I do very much agree that the French fans are phenomenal, I am very happy to have Toucouille here in the LCS with us this year. Next up, it's TSM versus FlyQuest. Two teams in very different positions. First of all, FlyQuest very much a surprise in week 1 to come out with that 2-0. TSM, however, 0-2. With the new faces on the lineup, it definitely does not feel like hope is lost, Raz.
It doesn't feel like that because their games are feeling like pretty competitive. They're obviously going up against, at least when they went up against Evil Geniuses, that was a tough one to go into. And they have glimpses like of brilliance. There are times where we saw Shenyi and Tactical. They were able to take a great 2v2 kill versus Danny and Falcon. You're like, perfect. And then the preceding plays, they drops them below in experience. So it sucks to see, but they're only getting better.
I was going to say, I think Huni as well on screen is someone who I want to see a little bit more out of. He got the counter pick on Jenkins in one of those recent games and was not able to slam him quite like I would have hoped to have seen. So it is an area where I want to see a little bit more out of him. Excuse me, Fake God I meant to say, not Jenkins.
Okay.
No worries. It was the Dignitas game. He got the counter pick on the Gwen. It was the Graves.
Yeah.
It just wasn't particularly
That's
impressive.
actually not why I was giving you the face I was giving you.
I realized after I said it, when everyone arched their eyebrows, I was like, that's not who I meant.
No, but I'm arching my eyebrows at you because when you want to see more from Huni. I respect that.
Yeah.
Is this the game where you're going to get to see more from Huni against
against the empty lane?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. This is the perfect game. He's probably going to get a free lane.
Okay. Yeah, well, so this brings us to FlyQuest, right? It's the 2-0 start for them, but off the back of the Smite top, which, while maybe not the cleanest of wins, they fell into their favor, right? They were the first team to bring it onto the stage, and they found success with it.
Yeah, and you can see that they have a pretty good understanding of like how they want to play it. I'm not gonna, say that their execution has always been like super on point, but they have been getting that first Drake pretty early. They have been targeting bot lane specifically. I actually think separate from the Smite top, and yes, obviously they've been funneling a lot of attention, gold, and resources into him, but Johnsun has been playing a lot better than I expected. He's been performing really well for this team. And so now the question is, is Kumo going to take another Smite top laner going into this matchup?
Yeah, I mean, of the 3 games you've seen in the Smite top, including the one Evil Geniuses game, like FlyQuest have been the better team at being able to utilize the strategy early. The problem is always when it gets to the mid game. Like the mid game, of course, especially in their first game of it, where they gave up versus CLG. They gave up side lanes, they tried to go for Baron, they gave CLG a win con, and it became really dirty real quickly. But like, their early portions of the game have been excellent with this.
I think what's made them interesting and why they're able to continue these kind of like mid-late game scrappy fights is their teamwork and just their positive attitude as so apparent if you're watching Champions Queue. Obviously, Kumo is at the very top here, but I've been watching a lot of aphromoo as well because he's streaming it and it's kind of reinvigorated my interest in watching these people's streams. And he's like hyping up the rest of FlyQuest. They're all over the top of that leaderboard. If you actually go down and look, there's multiple FlyQuest members. Johnson's on there, Josedeodo's on there. They're taking it really seriously and they are all hyping each other up. And so Kumo being at the top, doing all these interesting strats is definitely a key person to watch.
And talking to aphromoo, I got that similar impression, right? Where like, it's like, you know what? We're going to make mistakes, but when those mistakes happen, it's about being able to refocus and calms. And again, like even when their execution hasn't necessarily been the best, they have been able to get game-winning team fights in order to take these games.
And now, Raz, I want to flip back to the mid lane to put a spotlight there. We heard from Toucouille himself in coming over to the LCS, but on the other side of the rift here in this matchup, we have Keaiduo. And for me, seeing these two imports go head-to-head is going to be very exciting, but because one has had the success of the 2-0 start, the other has shown moments of brilliance and very much already, I think, in a number of ways, proven to us why he's here.
Yes.
But now we need to see the victory follow.
Yeah, one coming from the Pacific, the other from the Atlantic. I actually was able to watch TSM Legends and their series, and they had a focus on Keaiduo and Shenyi, of course, making the move. And it made me realize, yes, this is a big journey for both of these players, right? You're coming over to a Premier League and you want to prove yourself to the audience. And like, I think Toucouille has already done that so far with his Zoe play. His Zoe play has been incredible. And all of these games that they have played so far, I've always been loving the fact that he's able to like make plays happen individually. Because at first we were like, oh, you know, he's going to be a control mage player. He's not going to have that in him, but it hasn't been the case. He's been on point.
So I want to get ourselves out to the casters and get this game started, but because this is the remaining undefeated team, I know you guys have predictions on record. I just want to go down the line real quick. Do they remain undefeated, or does TSM take their first one here today, Raz?
I think TSM takes their first win here.
I need to check Slack. I forgot what I said. Okay, Mark's going to do that. You let me know.
I also said TSM, actually.
TSM, okay.
I actually said TSM too. What the hell?
Oh, my goodness.
Okay, all right. Well,
You don't seem very
I'm
confident.
tripping.
the prediction is...
What do I say? FlyQuest, can I change it?
Yeah, you can. You can
Oh,
say
you
it
can.
before
I'm
the
going
game's happened.
FlyQuest.
There it is, the flip-flopper Mark Z. You can always rely on him. Let's join LeTigress and Jatt in the arena for the call.
I see through your tactics, Mark Z. I don't believe it for a second. Welcome, everyone, here to the LCS arena. My name's LeTigress. I got Jatt by my side. Last game of the day. Let's go.
I've been waiting all day for this, literally, to see if this game would happen. And as they mentioned, it's surprising that it's an undefeated versus winless, right? Right now, COG, TSM, the only winless teams in the LCS. FlyQuest, the only undefeated team in the LCS. And there is a really good energy here. It's nice to have the players back. I was just headset off, listening to them banter before, and they're just, I think, excited to be back here and just hopefully ready to play a good game of League of Legends.
Speaking of that energy, one of my favorite things of last week was seeing the player cams of the FlyQuest players prior to the draft starting, because they had that trickle of a smile on their face saying, we know what's coming. They don't know, though, and it ended up being that 2-0 start that not many were expecting, but here we are getting into the draft.
Yeah, there was a lot of banter in the pregame lobby about how many smites there would be in this game. Notably, FlyQuest played the smite top twice last week, once with Janna, the second time with Karma, even though Janna was up. We'll see if that's what they're going to continue to hang their hat on, because that strategy is pretty impossible to ban out with the number of possible enchanters, or not even enchanters you could take top lane and do a low farm smite strategy with.
So interesting when thinking about the mindset behind those type of strategies as well. Obviously,
Yeah.
we're starting to see it more prominent among other teams too. But when speaking to the players after the interviews, oh, we want some of that surprise factor. So are they going to continue leaning into that or in another direction? TSM locked their jungler first, though. Lee Sin in the hands of Spica, and then over for FlyQuest, a common prioritization to get Jinx up there.
Yeah, and so it is going to vary a little bit. The last time they did a red side smite game, they actually picked Janna on 2. They obviously could still do it, but I think Janna, Tahm Kench, Jinx is a little different than I would expect, because I'd want to see engage on a team with smite top. So maybe we see a standard game, but still plenty of draft to play out.
I do love that variation with that smite, having aphromoo on the Leona last time being so key in a lot of that, compared to when you first saw this coming through solo queue and a lot of double up of the enchanters and beyond. Over for TSM side though, Tactical very comfortable on the Aphelios, and this bot lane is one that I'm definitely looking at because of what they were able to showcase in the mechanics and their aggression early.
Yeah, and I think with them being 0-2, they want to have a much better showing. Aphelios versus Jinx is really a skill matchup at this point. It's what these guys have been playing against each other pretty much every game of Champions Queue that recently launched this week on Monday, and these guys have been grinding it. But unless one of those champs is banned or something changes in a patch, that's a bottom lane matchup we're going to be seeing a lot more of.
Interestingly enough, Josedeodo and Shenyi were in a game in Champions Queue together last night.
Yeah.
It was Jose on the J4. You had the Rel come out, and they did pull off the W, but only one could get the W today, unfortunately, for somebody.
Yeah, I know they hovered Rel before going into the second phase of bans. Sometimes that's because they would consider actually locking it. Sometimes it's just debate. I would like to see it again, actually, from Shenyi. I thought the Rel that we saw from him, I believe it was in lock-in, was actually pretty good, but particularly it can be good against Tahm Kench, since the Rel Q, the champion just does so much, but the Rel Q actually does break shields, which can be very good against the Tahm Kench.
A nice layer up there, and then obviously when you're looking at a player like Shenyi that is so prominent on those engages, got a lot of really good Magnet Storms in that first game last week, just couldn't quite follow up with the rest of the team in the later portions of the game.
And it's banned. So,
Yeah.
so much for that one. I like the Orianna and the Corki bans from here as well. A lot of times it's the Viktor Corki trade, but you know, the immediate hover by FlyQuest, I think, is what they're going to lock in. it's going to push them a little bit more towards early game in mid lane, but I think Zoe can get an early push on Viktor and then still have the one-shot potential later in the game, even if Zoe will lose side lane push in the mid to late game.
And while players like Kumo have ushered in that wave of flexibility for the rest of the team, depending on what they want to go, we have seen Toucouille on this pick of Zoe multiple times. Obviously making a splash over and locking a good old steal to get everybody's hearts pumping, but just some great laning and knowing exactly when to poke and lock down the opponents. But we'll have to see what TSM end up responding with in these final moments of the lock-in, and it's the Rakan that Shenyi will be bringing through.
Yeah, with the Thresh and the Rel bans, it's not too surprising. You generally don't want to play something like Nautilus into Tahm Kench because you'll often kind of commit yourself to a fight and then just get murdered. So the Rakan being a little more in and out, I like, but I don't necessarily think it's going to be the strongest at getting push in the lane early.
And with Renekton going into the hands of Huni here, I know the desk was talking about wanting to see him pop off, want a little more from him. How you feel on the subject?
I'd like to see pretty much anyone on TSM step up more other than Keaiduo, and I do think Huni is a person that can have a solo carry performance. This is a trap card, though, if the Enchanter gets picked by FlyQuest on 5 right here, but they're going to go for something standard and just go for tank team fighting.
Classic Ornn for the team fight. Kumo, plenty of experience on that one, as many top laners tend to do, so a lot of that power relying on Johnsun later on in the game. Both drafts lined up. What do you make of them, Jatt?
They're very similar, actually, in terms of how they're going to look to line up late-game team fighting. They both have hyper-carry ADs. With the Ornn and Jarvan being on the side of FlyQuest, they're going to have a stronger front line. But TSM is going to be needing to play a little bit more from the flanks with Renekton, Lee Sin, Rakan. So, yeah, kind of the more I look at it, FlyQuest is going to be able to outrange and have better 5v5 team fighting. And I think TSM is going to have to get a bit of an advantage early or be very creative in the late game to win this one.
Which lays really nicely into some of the strengths we saw from them prior, because Kobe, during the cast of that latter FlyQuest game, saying they look more coordinated than the team has looked in 2 years. And then TSM finding those advantages when making the plays earlier, specifically in the 2v2 and beyond. So whichever team can index into those strengths might be the one to come out with the overall victory.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I also think, obviously, just being 1 week in to the LCS split, there's so much unexplored. So much can change in a week. We saw already today, Immortals, a team that many people were pronouncing dead on arrival, take a game off the defending champs, 100 Thieves. And if there's a week 1 to week 2 progression that I really want to see from TSM, it would actually be more from Spica. And I think it's also because he has such a hard job on this team in particular, playing the translator role many times for his support and mid laner. As a dual language speaker, I think it just puts an extra tax on what he needs to do as a jungler.
That is just kind of the constant thing that we'll be having to check in on, especially because in several interviews when appearing on things like Hotline League, making sure to be reserved in even his personal expectations for this squad. It'll take time for them to synergize. We're here in week 2, taking to the Rift for the first time for these two teams of the day, as most of FlyQuest gathering around here, but will be going back. But definitely tracking to see how Spica can make an impact early on the Lee Sin, looking for those plays.
Yeah, so far, the ward on TSM's blue buff is going to be matched by the ward on FlyQuest blue buff, so both junglers are going to have pretty good knowledge of where they start. I'd actually say the Jarvan early gank is slightly more potent than the Lee Sin early gank, so a bit of a wash, but we'll see if either jungler can remain undetected.
All right. Trying and going under the guise of the information offered through that early warding here, but Josedeodo starting over on his red as those are now going to spawn. You can see the bot lane for TSM looking to go ahead and match them down there, and want to see where Spica brings that pathing early for that impact to try and get someone like Tactical ahead if you can launch off of some great lockdown from someone like Shenyi.
Yeah, both junglers going top to bot as well. Even though there wasn't vision directly onto Jarvan, it's quite easy to surmise where he started based on the fact that Ornn was late to lane and the fact that the blue buff wasn't touched on FlyQuest's side of the jungle. So not much to note of early, other than the fact that Huni can probably play pretty aggressive from like 2 minutes 30 on, since that's going to be a timing where Jarvan would not be top.
Ornn duty quite classic when it comes to prescribing how that early game is going to go in laning, focusing on later on, get those ornaments online, and right now try and offset any pressure that but down in the bot lane, we already get some action, tactical, ignited, flashes away. Both HP bars brought down low, but they're safe.
Yeah, I'm actually quite surprised that TSM was in that position. The Tahm Kench Jinx is just going to be stronger, especially when they have a level advantage. I mean, any duo would be stronger when it's 2 level 2s to 2 level 1s, but being in range of that engage and having to burn multiple flashes is a very good start to the lane for FlyQuest.
And a nice scrap over in the mid lane as well. Toucouille getting a little blasted himself, but has some of that sustainability through the potions. Both sides of that equation utilizing those to be able to stay into that lane a bit longer. But we were talking so much about Tactical and Shenyi trying to go for the play. It's nice to see that aggression on the opposite side.
Yeah, it actually looks like Viktor got a lot of really good trades on it to Toucouille there, and you can see he's actually freezing the wave at the halfway point there and forcing the Zoe into the early recall. A lot of times when trying to do that, the Zoe can actually out-trade the enemy mid laner, especially if Zoe can get like an ignite drop off a minion or something. It gets even more obnoxious, but that's very advantageous early laning for the Viktor side based on how I've seen that matchup play in the past.
And off of that advantage, you could even see the way Huni was rotating through the jungle, make sure to use a good old bloom, try and seek out any information on the enemy jungler as possible. So you know that Josedeodo is hovering over on that bottom side. Kumo getting chunked down here as well, a bit over the top. A nice wave to be finished off here by Huni.
Yeah, he doesn't need to push it quickly, actually. He'd love if that could trim the wave a little bit more, but we have a Jarvan sighting in the bot lane.
Shenyi running into a little bit of trouble. Saw the abyssal dive from aphromoo. A long distance lock isn't going to be anything for the big old catfish to worry about, and Josedeodo here for additional assistance if necessary.
Yeah, not much necessary though. He got a pretty nice early Jarvan clear. Full top to bot, takes the Scuttle Crab so he can recall on a pretty powerful item there in Pickaxe. So he'll have more combat power than Spica if they end up meeting. Spica here, I think, just to let the wave crash for Huni and maybe even get a play. Dive would be rather ambitious.
Now walk right over that ward, so Kumo knew it was coming, locked in and stunned out. And on the opposite side, Josedeodo is here for the lock-in, knock up onto Huni, a burn onto Spica. First blood going over to FlyQuest, Josedeodo taking it.
Ooh, that was very forced by Spica and Huni. I'll have to watch it again to see if there was a critical cooldown they missed, but generally diving a cloth armor Ornn like that is very dangerous. And bot.
Oh, Shenyi goes in for it. Flashes used. The drowsy landing onto Shenyi. The burst is good.
No flash.
Heal in response. Toucouille finishes off.
aphromoo and Johnsun with more early lane plays, capitalizing on the flash being down already. And you don't traditionally think of Tahm Kench as this aggressive laner, but the current iteration of Tahm Kench with that W engage range absolutely can be. And because of what they built early, they're able to capitalize on it here.
Watched a lot of Tahm Kench from aphromoo on his stream during Champions Queue as well, so he's definitely warmed up coming into this matchup. Johnsun and aphromoos reuniting after times parted has probably been one of the most exciting storylines of FlyQuest in general, and seeing how they can capitalize upon that previously established synergy to bully out some of these enemy laners.
All right, let's watch this dive one more time. So they stack a wave, they get Kumo under turret. Huni waits for the stun so they can get... Maybe the Lee Sin Q didn't land? I'd have to watch it again in slow motion, but again, an ambitious dive, especially because if Jarvan is there, at least one of you is going down on the back end. Renekton hadn't even shopped, so his damage wasn't particularly that high. And then Toucouille finds a nice roam timing, as Zoe's can often do, and makes it count.
You know that jungler is on top side. You know that he's not going to have the opportunity to even out the numbers game in that engaged down bot. So FlyQuest, nice opportunity to capitalize upon that, bringing a 1K gold lead for themselves at 6.5 minutes. That means the Drake has spawned. Cloud Drake for us to kick things off in this game. Some vision established on the outskirts of the mid lane, but we're just now starting to see that sweep through. Josedeodo making his way through the tribe bush, sweeping it away, and Spica is nearby over on the Krugs as well. But lots of rotations from Toucouille between mid and bot to do exactly what you expect to find those opportunities.
Yeah, because if that's just a farm trade matchup in the mid lane, Viktor is going to win out eventually once he can get his Hexcore upgrade on his Death Ray, it's very easy for the Viktor to get shoved. But until that point, Toucouille can play pretty aggressively, get little timing windows, and then make things happen. He got the kill for the bottom lane, and then he also bought them time to get that dragon.
Great play off of that intel, going and making sure to secure the vision, take it away. And there you go, FlyQuest still extending their advantages, not just within gold, but objective control across the map. You can see the pings in response over on that top side, and even the control ward in that pit. But still some time before we see that Rift Herald action not spawning for another 15 seconds.
Yeah, and something that I want to pay attention to with the Rift Herald is really just what's the state of this bottom lane and when are they going to be roaming up? Because with that Jinx and Tahm Kench timing right now, that's timed up with the Rift Herald start, and the Aphelios needs to catch the wave. So they could think to start it over that, or they can just keep fogging back and forth in the river until they feel like it's a good time to go up.
And that's what aphromoo is alluding to, maintaining his position in that pixel over in the riverside. But now knows that he's got to make his rotation down, because Shenyi is also going across some of these wards. They drop the control so he can offset that vision that was acquired by FlyQuest and move a bit more freely across the map. But you do have to be careful about that run-in with that opposing support here.
Yeah, especially when you're up against an Aphelios. If you try and move your bottom lane up to Rift Herald without having what's called like tempo on the Aphelios, so the wave would be pushing into Aphelios rather than Aphelios being at the turret, he's going to get like 300 to 500 gold off the turret. So, like, right now is definitely not a Rift Herald timing for FlyQuest. I think Josedeodo is just trying to play defense to make sure that TSM doesn't take it on a Renekton push timing, but I don't necessarily think this would be a timing for FlyQuest. If anything, it's a timing for TSM to try and take it, because they have the bot lane move.
And that's what they're going to try to do. Spica starting it up slightly, but knows that Josedeodo is likely still in the area. Shenyi making his rotation through, as well as tactical. So that early firepower here, ready for the 5-man collapse onto this objective for TSM.
Might see a fight.
Does Josedeodo try and initiate this?
Everyone's here.
J4 is who you look to go for it. Kumo also from the top side, going and throwing down the Ornn horn. Even the flashes directly into the level of impact. Cataclysm gets the lock even more. A trade of Huni for a trade of Josedeodo means this is complete.
Really interesting series of events right there. So TSM thought they had enough time to kill the Rift Herald because their bot lane moved first, and they had the Renekton there first. But since FlyQuest decided to fully move up their bottom lane, they were just waiting for everyone to get there, and there's a split-second thing. If this Herald was dead 2 seconds earlier, the bottom lane's not there to fight. But Kumo notably leaves the wave so he can get the angle for this Ornn ultimate, and everyone can engage together. Even though Shenyi does interrupt the Jarvan EQ, it's just not enough with the Ornn horn and the Zoe Drowsy coming in over the top.
And with both of these teams kind of indexing into that strength in team fighting, knowing that Kumo can make that rotation around and set up very nicely with that angle is what you want to see from the side of FlyQuest against TSM here.
Yeah, things are looking very good for FlyQuest at this juncture, but we're going to have to pay attention to where this Herald is used, because if Spica can get a successful gank off in a side lane and possibly full break a turret, I'd say particularly for an Aphelios or a Viktor, that's what's going to make the most difference. The easier Herald usage is for the Renekton, but at this point, I don't necessarily think the Renekton snowballing is something that can win them the game, and they're going to need their carries, but it is also a more guaranteed use of gold for it.
And that Renekton, speaking of, just going to be put on that duty with Ornn, down flipping towards that bot side, and unlocking officially these support players. Now you know that that Rift Herald is on the horizon. You want to be able to match wherever it could potentially lock down. And FlyQuest moving into enemy jungle territory. Wave pushed up by Johnsun onto this turret. 11:20 soon enough on the clock means plates are still good, but TSM trade out on the bot side to get one for themselves.
Yeah, they're going to get a full turret of gold here. It's going to split a lot of the plate gold from the Aphelios towards the Lee Sin and Renekton. It'll still be the first turret. However, because it was pretty much a big map split, I think Johnsun's going to get a good chunk of plates himself. We'll see how the gold pans out when this is all said and done.
And Johnsun still left to his lonesome there top. You saw the initial rotation from Fly, but make sure to keep that pressure across both of those lanes with TSM's priority down here. Bot getting the second charge, though, off of that Herald onto the tier 2 is a really great spot to see from them with that advantage here.
It is. If they can make a return trip to that lane, it's going to be really beneficial. But as kind of the losing team at the moment, I think it's going to be pretty difficult for them to get there. I like that Huni did push Johnsun off the turret there. I'm kind of all over the place here, apologies, but it's Kraken Slayer for Johnsun, which is really important as the next Dragon is spawning, and FlyQuest has a team that really wants to group around Dragon and force fights, so they should be able to get good position for this Drake.
That Drake is up. Josedeodo is on it. TSM is not. So FlyQuest, while doing everything they can to make sure they have as much security and firepower for the pending potential fight, they don't actually have to do it, stacking up the second one for themselves.
Yeah, they're now in a pretty comfortable position. Obviously, there's still a lot of League that can be played, and the engage from the Rakan and the Lee Sin is going to be a high threat for the rest of it, but getting the first Mythic on their AD carry, having Kumo kind of through the early laning phase without too much bad happening, and then also having the Zoe being ahead of the Viktor, they're pretty happy with the game state right now.
Right in the jungle, though, Shenyi finds himself on the opposite side of Josedeodo and friends. Cataclysm followed up by aphromoo. That's a kill onto the enemy support.
Oh, that's gotta be so much nicer for FlyQuest on top of what was already there. Taking control of the red buff. Kumo is even very close to getting this turret for himself. This is on the edge of becoming a rout.
Kumo okay with not getting any extra plate action or turrets if he was left to his lonesome, but finding the opportunity on that top side. FlyQuest extending the goal just a little bit more, 1.4. And TSM having to reset right now. Venturing into the enemy jungle, Josedeodo right here at his red, and Spica knows it. Throws down the Q, wants to contest for himself, so Jose just lets him be. Keaiduo is also nearby with Huni. Kumo could potentially be a target.
He's got to make sure to keep his health up as much as possible, allow Jose and Afro to arrive.
Zoning off Jose as much as they possibly can, flash away,
Ambitious.
flag and drag in, activated the Dominus here, next knock up from the Ornn horn. Kumo continues to go in to try and find a little bit of safety, but the return from aphromoo is good here. So TSM not necessarily going to want to continue for that more. Flash forward by Toucouille and aphromoo. Goes for the abyssal dive once more. Huni is now separated. Tries to slice and dice away. The damage is too good.
Got him.
Spica is still here though, but he can't do anything about it. Another flash forward. That's a Zoe. Just endless opportunities to do so. And the rest retreat.
LeTigress, that was a 3v4. And FlyQuest won it that whole time. Johnsun was getting solo turret gold for himself, so he's now 1,500 up against the opposing Aphelios. This game is even closer to becoming a rout, and it's crazy what's happened with FlyQuest so far in this year. They win a couple close Enchantress Smite top games, and there were 4 undefeated teams coming into this week. FlyQuest is the only one remaining so far today. The other 3 2-0 teams all lost. So if FlyQuest wins this, they'd actually be atop of the standings alone in first after 3 games.
And I feel like it was so difficult to anticipate if they would be able to follow up on that 2-0. Not only because of the nature of this league, as we see then Jinx Rocket go down, but not going to connect on anyone, because everyone taking a game off someone else. Immortals taking down 100 Thieves earlier, but also because when you go for such a unique strategy, what happens when they go on a more traditional comp? And it feels like a lot of what they have learned throughout lock-in, trying to get more on the same page, not going for engages onto different individuals within team fight, not as present here, and been shoring this up more and more throughout time.
Yeah, they seem to be approaching this in a very calm manner. Also, last week in their game against Golden Guardians, they were down 5,000 or 6,000 gold, but the whole time they had Johnsun ahead of the enemy AD carry, and they've just displayed strong team fighting fundamentals. I think that's something that is transferable between the Smite top strategies that work and the composition they're playing here. If that Zap landed, Tactical is probably burning Flash, but they're still looking to open up time for this Rift Herald mid lane. So yeah, absolutely tracking how well they play as a team, front to back, coordinating team fights. If they do that well, I think this game is in the bag.
And with the difficulty that FlyQuest has had in previous seasons, it is a nice breath of fresh air for them to have some familiar faces, but bringing in some new blood to spice things up a little bit. They gotta worry. Toucouille getting pretty big. got the Mythic across almost everyone except for the support. Wow. That's it. You go to sleep, into the grave, right under the turret. Don't even need the rocket. Another one for FlyQuest.
Of course, he burns 2 summoner spells right before he dies. It's like the false hope ends up costing him even more.
Oh god, and FlyQuest can just bully him out. Says, Shenyi, what are you doing hanging around this turret? This is ours easily. Got the Rift Herald to drop down too, which means he'll get an additional charge. Because without Tactical nearby, the remaining members of TSM will have some difficulty holding this up. They do try to get the trade with Keaiduo going over towards top so he can eliminate that turret and offset this pressure. But look, another charge there for Shelly too.
Getting that mid-tier 2 down before even their tier 1 is down is a huge boon. And the Dragon up right now, they haven't had time to reset, so it's slightly scary right now starting up the Dragon just like this, but they have enough control of the jungle. It doesn't look like TSM's going to contest at all.
Nope, and they know Keaiduo is top, does have the Unleashed Teleport at this point in time, so you are thinking
Tactical,
about those
no
things.
sums.
Instead, another Ornn Horn drop through for a Tactical. Doesn't have any of that escapability. Knock up after knock up, knocked down. Tactical out.
So, this is definitely looking like one team who is very much on the same page, and one team who is on a lot of different pages of different books. And it was a fear of this TSM team coming into the year that could be a possibility. They take 2 LDL players from China, not strong English speakers. We have Tactical and Shenyi, mixed language bottom lane, not playing well. And really, they're all over the place on the map. It's one fish in a lane, just getting picked out of the barrel over and over again. This is actually really looking like a 2-0 team versus an 0-2 team. So those records are not lying to us based on the strengths of the team so far this game.
I feel like FlyQuest wouldn't pick fish out of the barrel. They strike me as vegetarians, and they're always trying to save the world together.
It's not a fish factory. It's like humane, sustainable fishing. They're out on a boat.
They got the good dreams when they're having their little fishy sleepies in the water.
Yeah.
I like it. And I'm loving what I'm seeing from FlyQuest in recent games too, because of that level of coordination and really waking them up on Summoner's Rift time and time again. Whereas TSM, you do ask that question, okay, when do we see that kind of gelling together finally? Huni taking a bit of damage over here. Josedeodo making his rotation through the side too, so they can just back him off, and they've got a little bit of time to burn some more of this wave.
FlyQuest has done a very good job so far this game, taking the opportunities when they're there, but also not overcommitting. I think there's a different version of Josedeodo who flash ults there onto Huni trying to get something out, but he saves it because that's not how they win this game. They win this game by getting the Infernal Soul, setting up as 5, being first to a spot, waiting for TSM to walk in, and then just killing them with their better front line and better backline damage. So they just need to have patience here, waiting for this Infernal Soul, maybe even getting good enough vision control and going for an early Baron, but they will win this game around objectives.
Knowing when to exert that patience and when not to go too hard is one of the strengths of Josedeodo as they start up this Baron. Seeing him in past seasons, even before coming to the LCS, highlight clips of him on the Evelyn, sometimes it's having that tempered moment, but we're actually getting the burn down. They're committing to it. TSM's making their rotation through. Are they going to try and go for a fight off of this? Kumo goes in, gets rooted, knocked up once more. Quickness to get Shenyi back into protected territory. Teleport directly into the center. Cataclysm thrown up, and Josedeodo has to get out of there with the flash, but it's okay. FlyQuest here. Don't lose a single member. Take down Tactical again and get the Baron.
Just a really nice overall sequence there by FlyQuest. They had good vision in the jungle before they started up the Baron. They take it easily, and then they turn for a fight. And you can just see the mass of their gold lead as well. Kumo got hit for the entire fight, still didn't die. But we're going to see this one more time as TSM is trying to check. They were maybe a little late to go in, but they can't check blindly because they are up against an Ornn Jarvan who can engage at the snap of a finger. So Spica almost gets blown up by Zoe on the side. The Ornn ultimate only hits one, but Josedeodo's combo, as well as the Zoe paddle start, looked like it blew up the whole team. It was just one in a flash, but a lot of things disappeared when that connected, and they are in total command of this game.
As we get a continuation of the engages that have worked so well, Johnsun goes golden, teleport from Keaiduo to try and get a good death ray down. Johnsun with a flash in return, has the autos that are going to do those heavy hits though to take down Spica, and the rest of FlyQuest are in pursuit. They do have to worry about the low HP of their ADC, but they still take the support. Josedeodo with the flank around to get the knock up, and the rest of the team has finally arrived as well. A good old bubble to get a good chunk down onto Huni, brings his HP bar down to 50%, and Kumo taking the tower so they can get this Baron empowered wave to finish off that tier 2. Not going to connect with the Ornn Horn on this one. aphromoo flashing forward to see if he can get a tongue slap onto somebody, but in the end, it's still an overall victory for them as they pressure into the base.
We're only 22 minutes in, and it looked like they were one Jarvan ult on a group away from just ending the game. TSM's gonna try something desperate.
And they know that they've already gotten a decent amount of poke down and burst. Spica connects, but not really a very safe opportunity to move in on that.
Oh,
Rousey also going to sleep, and you see the E come in from Josedeodo. Targets 3 with a Cataclysm. Huni, can you swing away as the Renekton? We're looking at you to offset the rest, but Tactical gets a nice kick onto Kumo. So 3 taken away for Fly, 3 for TSM. It's a bloodbath.
Whew, that was definitely the bloodiest fight we have seen, pushing the limits a little bit as FlyQuest was low health, retreating towards the spawning Infernal Soul. Tactical clutched that fight really hard, to be completely honest. He had the white gun, got a ton of chakrams going, was at a sliver of health, and is the one who ended up cleaning this one up. But remember, the Ornn ult is down at the start of this fight because of what was tried previously, and we got to cut away from this because Huni was trying to stop that Infernal Soul, and it did not go well.
Oh no, the crocodile goes down. And that means that this is Soul going over to FlyQuest. It's looking pretty good for them. Almost 8K gold lead. Yeah, the last fight went even, but they're still winning across the board. TSM are here for an attempted contest, though. Toucouille feels like he ain't never missing a shot. To let everybody follow up, Super Mega Death Rocket lands onto 2, but they're tanky enough and enough to sustain available to them as well. But the zoning right now is unreal. Look at that. Spica, just a couple shots. He can't be in it anymore. Knock up onto Shenyi, but that's the support and enough distance just to say, okay, we want to make sure we secure this Drake, and we got it.
Toucouille has been incredible this game. He doesn't have a CS advantage on Viktor, but that's because he's been making plays everywhere on the map. He was able to get enough control of the lane in the mid game to make roams. He's just completely controlling the space that FlyQuest has vision for. It's very hard to check spaces against Zoe as the team is behind, but he's landing everything. And here's the final fight.
The flash and the charm from Shenyi goes Drowsy. Can't even fall asleep yet. They say no dreams for you, buddy. We're just putting you right down as soon as we possibly can. Spica trying to get a little bit of safety, but there's no safety when FlyQuest has your number, baby. Trying to punch them tickets. Huni already expelled his ultimate. And look, every single time Toucouille goes in, he said, this is my dream territory. FlyQuest pressuring, not even 25 minutes yet, Jatt. We're already knocking on the doors. Huni with the last stand right there in the back. Rocket slicing through nobody because there's not a single phase left. Shenyi coming up. And on the clock right now, FlyQuest remain the only undefeated team in the LCS.
Wow. That's a game that'll bring smiles to FlyQuest fans, that's for sure.
Oh my lord. So I loved last week in the crazy kind of I don't want to say it, but cluster craziness, right? I love it though, also seeing just how clean this was. Very straightforward.
Yeah, that's a tale of two teams right here. FlyQuest just on every cylinder, TSM looking fairly lost. And there was some joking in the lobby chat between these two teams with the release of Champions Queue. I mean, Kumo is at 175 points, currently tied for rank 1. It opened at 6 p.m. Pacific time. They were joking that they need to make this game fast, like both teams, to get back in Champions Queue. Well, I didn't know FlyQuest was going to take it so literally. Like, they just ended that fast. The quickest game of the day for the only undefeated team in the LCS.
And speaking of Kumo, if he's trying real hard to get into his home seat so he can queue back up, on the Ornn, great engages, looking specifically to him and Josedeodo on the J4 to make those fights happen, and it feels like they were extremely synergized.
They really were. That's that was all smiles. Like, I haven't seen a team that happy on stage all day. And I think it makes sense, right? The expectations for FlyQuest coming into this year were understandably low after having a poor 2021. Their lock-in performance was okay, but we're 3 of 18 games in. Things are looking great for FlyQuest. It'll be about how they build on this and how they keep up that level of play.
I am a little bitter because we only came in for 1 game.
And it was too fast.
So short.
We got like half a game compared to the earlier games.
Come on, FlyQuest. I just, wanted a good time. Well, FlyQuest do remain undefeated. And with that, we are going to be wrapping up our day at the Bud Light Breakdown.
Thank you so much, LeTigress, and welcome to the Bud Light Breakdown. FlyQuest is speedrunning that game to remain undefeated at 3-0. And to be honest, I appreciate that because I think they recognize that with Jatt returning to casting, maybe his vocal stamina wouldn't quite be there, right?
Gotta wrap it up.
Like, hey, we'll get it done for you, buddy. Good time out there. Honestly, this was a shellacking.
Ridiculous.
This game felt over at 6 minutes.
This is why they don't play
whenever
standard.
that first dive attempt.
Mark, this is why they don't play standard. You let them play standard, it's going to end too early.
They're too good. They're like, guys, we're smurfing. We got to keep people interested in our games. Let's go make it interesting with, Kumo's not allowed to play top lane.
What the heck?
I mean, so unironically, I feel like we talked about how Cloud9, when they were playing EG, Fudge in an interview said, like, we thought they were the better team, so we wanted to throw a curveball at them. This is the first time FlyQuest doesn't throw a curveball. Reading between the lines, I think it's because they really thought that, we're better than TSM. We're going to outplay them in a straight-up standard draft, and that's exactly what they did.
Yeah, I really love this draft from FlyQuest. A lot of it, I mean, being able to pick up the Jinx specifically. I already talked about how I think Toucouille's Zoe is his best champion.
So good.
And he does it again. So, like, it's really difficult. And then, I mean, as much as I'm talking about the Zoe play there, Josedeodo's Jarvan. It was just insane. The bot lane, EQ into a 3-man knockup. I think they performed incredibly. So good job to them.
It's a standard-looking draft. The reason why we showed it was because it's a departure from what FlyQuest had shown us just last week. But you dive straight into the gameplay, and again, everything went right for FlyQuest early. Everything went wrong for TSM. This is that first dive we're talking about. Going for it, even with the knowledge that Jarvan might be showing up. That's exactly what happens. It ends up in a 1-for-1 trade. You flip to the bottom side, and Toucouille uses that time, I think, so brilliantly to take advantage of bot lane summoners that were blown not long before.
Yeah, and when we're talking about what Toucouille can do on the Zoe, it's stuff like this, right? Like, he recognizes that he does have a roam timing because of the top play that just happened. And like, we talk about Zoe's and what her strength is, especially when that first turret goes down. Well, if she can just roam the side lanes before that, that's such a benefit for FlyQuest as well.
And I feel like it led to the whole team kind of popping off. TSM were trying to make plays around here, but there's been some miscoordination between them. Shenyi used his ult thinking that Keaiduo wanted to go in, and then he just ends up with a no-ult Rakan during a Rift Herald fight. Plus, your Viktor ult's down, and I think FlyQuest knew that, communicated, and said, like, let's fight them. We can actually win this now.
This has to be one of the worst feeling games, because that one was a very clear one that led into them just hard losing the next fight. The dive, I know we're going to look at this one, but the first play that we saw, which was the dive on the Ornn, just never works. It will never work.
Yeah, I mean, this is a 4v3 that they're losing. Like, these are situations for TSM where, like, theoretically you should be in a good position. That's why it feels extra bad when they turn south, is because you kind of did the legwork to get the odd number advantage, and then you get outplayed.
Yeah, and so many things went wrong at this point in the game that you even had moments where, Sleepy Trouble Bubble hits, the Aphelios.
In the mid lane.
In mid lane, he blows flash, heal, still dies, comes back mid without flash, dies again. It was a lot of errors. So games like these are usually the worst to kind of go through, because past the point where you are behind, a lot of it's just, I feel like, tilt work.
I mean, again, from my perspective, you're in TSM's shoes. After top lane goes bad, bot lane goes bad, wipe it from your memory. Move on. Just try again tomorrow, right? I don't think there's a ton to learn from that losing situation. But on the flip side, I think FlyQuest can look at a lot of what they did and be very happy and to have positive takeaways from that. Because as you mentioned, Mark, in multiple places where unforced errors maybe came out of TSM, FlyQuest was so quick to recognize that and then consequently take advantage of it in the next fight.
I didn't feel like FlyQuest looked great. They were all on the same page, and they were able to, like, accelerate their game plan. When you take an Ornn, you're not really looking at like, let's hard smurf the early game. If they're going to make a bad dive happen and Josedeodo is going to cover it, then they can actually win the game extremely quickly.
And that's kind of what we were talking about previously with FlyQuest. Like, okay, when are we going to see like a strong mid game from them? And yes, obviously this is incredibly snowbally after capitalizing on TSM's mistakes, but you can see their coordination and their team fighting.
I'm still waiting for a strong mid game because that one ended in the early game. But let's talk Pogs, because today we had our first player pick up their second one. Comes from this game. It's Toucouille on the Zoe. These are the 5 that picked up the honors today. Jojopion, Wild Turtle, Hans Sama, Lost, and Toucouille. But let's start with Toucouille, because already to put 2 up on the board, he's the only person in the league to have done so far.
Yeah, I remember like guys coming from the LFL as an MVP during the Spring Split. There are a lot of questions of like the versatility and champions that he can play, like what he will provide to the FlyQuest roster, and he's been incredible. I feel like, you know, being able to go to the bot lane and connect with players, work alongside both Josedeodo and aphromoo, it's what got them this fast of a win, and so we need to see more of it.
I think it's no surprise that he's the first 1 to 2 because they're the only team with 3 wins.
Boom!
FlyQuest is the best team in the league. Of course they're going to have the most Pogs.
Yeah. People were talking about the fudge factor. They were talking about Bjergsen coming back.
Jojopion?
Jojopion, 100 Thieves. Here comes the environment. FlyQuest.
Is that his nickname? That's as bad as like Tim Duncan, the big fundamental. The big environment? Is that what Toucouille's nickname is?
Oh it is now.
He's the big environment.
The big environment.
He has a nickname.
The Leaf.
He's also the small carbon footprint is his other nickname.
I like that.
A small carbon footprint. I like that. It's
getting worse and worse.
Raise your hand if you had on your 2022 bingo card FlyQuest last remaining undefeated team in
Thank
the LCS.
God I flipped my prediction.
Anyone? Not
yeah.
Yay! Well done, well done.
Doesn't
But yeah,
count, producers,
I don't
count.
really believe that anyone in the world has their hand raised right now. And again, that's just to kind of showcase how incredible this initial showing from FlyQuest is. We'll see how long they can hold the top of the standings there, because they've built that game separation. But in doing so, you also paint that target on your back, right? Yeah. You've now built that expectation as you've won in a non-standard way and a standard way, for lack of a better way of phrasing it, because I almost hate saying that at this point. It has been so cool to watch it. I wonder how long it'll go. Now, we're excited here at the LCS to have Grubhub back again as an official delivery partner of the LCS and a sponsor of delivering the win. Now, this weekend, use the code IGNITE to receive an exclusive Grubhub Hextech chest and key on all orders over $15, and you're entered for a chance to win, a real-life Hextech chest filled to the brim with Grubhub prizes, like Emily did last weekend.
She didn't deserve it.
Okay, all right. Okay, Raz. I'm not going to sore loser. All right, well, while you grab yourself something to snack on, let's take a look at Bwipo delivering the win in the Grubhub dub earlier today for Team Liquid.
Yeah, and I mean, this was such an insane engage that he was able to come in with. In the prime moments, you don't see him, but he's coming from the flank.
Yeah, and this is kind of redemption for Bwipo. He called out his own misplays on, in his interview. This is an amazing flank. It really, even though you have actually Berserker and Fudge, I believe, end up playing the back of this fight really well, it basically sets up Hansama to continue absolutely firing from the back line, and the game's over.
Exactly, and this was such a back and forth game.
Yeah.
So for it to come to this pivotal moment where he's like, okay, the last fights haven't been working well for me and the team, to find that flank and have faith that your team can blow him up. Hansama had a pretty damn good game. Same goes for Bjergsen, and so they had the range to be able to capitalize and get Blabber out of there instantly in that last fight.
I just see the Bwipo picture on the Grubhub graphic, and I can only imagine them as like the drivers, like the delivery people. Anytime there's like the Grubhub graphic with a player, I'm just like what if Bwipo showed up and just handed me my cheeseburger?
Delivered you some Grubhub?
I would be pretty sweet, man.
There it is. I would have full faith.
Put a big old smile on my face right before I have a delicious dinner.
That's 5 stars.
Take one more look at our standings. I know we've talked a lot about FlyQuest there at the top, but I also want to talk about the rest just behind them. Bunch of teams is sitting at 2-1. It's 100 Thieves, Cloud9, Dignitas, Quantum Pay, Evil Geniuses, and Team Liquid. Before we get to the final 4, Golden Guardians, Immortals Progressive, CLG, and TSM in 7th to 10th place. So 2 winless teams still hunting for it. We'll see if they can find it tomorrow, but I love how close that kind of second position is looking right now.
Yeah, for me, my eyes go straight towards Immortals Progressive. I mean, Immortal is a team that have been stinking it up for lock-ins and week 1, being able to be competitive. And I know it's just in week 2 right now, but the fact that all of these troubles happen so early on, including lock-in, so they have the time to reform and then get back into the soup. I'm just gonna keep doing it.
Don't do it. Don't bring that back.
I'm gonna do
so
it.
unhappy.
I don't want
You
it.
can't
Mark
do it
doesn't
week
want it.
two.
I don't want
You
it.
can't do a week 2. It's
Yeah.
like, of course, the standings are close. They played 3 games.
That's perfect. I'm just trying to piss you off.
It's working. I was going to say, for me, the Dig EG game, leaving them tied in the standings, just showed how close it was. That was one of those back and forth games. It was very slow. All the EG people were memeing about how boring they made that game, but I still thought it was interesting for how back and forth the game actually was.
And then obviously we also have to talk about C9. Not only because they lost, but because the draft we saw from them today was radically different from their week 1 drafts, right? So I liked a lot of things that they did, especially, reminding people that Fudge has a really large champ pool, especially when you're taking something like Aurelia, which he's very comfortable on.
Yeah.
However, I don't think Blabber looked particularly comfortable on the Karthus at all. So that was an interesting reminder of what they can do in their flexibility, and now it's down to execution.
Yeah, I mean, for me in that game, especially, it kind of reminds me of TSM in the cases of like when you get to that later portions of the game, there are going to be some miscommunications, issues that just arise, right? There's one vivid moment of the TL C9 game where it's like, okay, they won the fight, nice. Oh, they're now funneling into
after Baron. After Baron.
Exactly. And they
towards
start
Wolves.
funneling in and dying one after another. It's like, that one is the most easiest one. They're going to look back and be like, well, we shouldn't have done this.
That one hurt me. Because not only was it the kills that go over, then you lose priority on the Drake, which ends up being sold for the opposing team.
It hurts, man.
Bunch of what ifs. Again, they'll be VoD reviewing that. We know where our teams stand. I want to know where all of you stand when it comes to our predictions. We know that Mark made an intelligent flip-flop at the end of the day.
It didn't count!
No.
They didn't
It's
count
going
it
to
for you.
count. I'm going to go ahead. He made the flip-flop before Champion Select happened, so there was no new information.
Sit down,
Raz.
up all angry.
Sit down. Well, fine, stand up. Just
I mean,
know
you
that
can
you're
stay.
ruining the shot.
Well, they
I
go
am
on
the
me,
shot.
but we should.
Oh! The spam's the shot. All right, well,
Look,
put him
on the production.
Put him on. Put him on
I
a
want to hear
single.
the
Put him on a
production.
single.
Tell me if that counts.
You go ahead.
Does that count production?
They all say it counts. They already confirmed it.
They confirmed it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're protesting.
Now you too can flip-flop on desk if you want.
know.
You
I got
can
the
only
power.
before
flip-flopping
any
on
information
desk
is gathered.
is not a
always
new
had,
thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you've always had the chance.
Yeah, I
Right,
have
now
flip-flopped
I
a
know.
million times on the deck.
You've given me this power to flip-flop,
I
okay?
was-
I've given it to you.
With
Yes.
my bad predictions.
Hey, you know what? I
I commit.
respect that too, just as much. All right, tomorrow's schedule. Let's see what we got in front of us. Immortals Progressive, that team that picked up their first win today. In Raz's mind, an exciting team to see if they can continue that run and take down a Cloud9 that just took their first loss here today. TSM Golden Guardians will follow. EG versus 100 Thieves, though. Smack dab in the middle of the day, both at 2-1. That one's looking sweet.
Yeah, that one's going to be great. And I want to see just the game right after that. Team Liquid versus FlyQuest.
I was going to say, who cares about that middle game? What about the undefeated team?
Right?
Yep.
Team Liquid's doomed.
TL now when you consider TL's weekend too, right? Having to take down Cloud9 today and then go up against an undefeated FlyQuest tomorrow. You got to wonder how. And after speaking to Gehoto about how hard it was to prep for Cloud9, given the fact that they're willing to do everything from Ivern and Soraka mid to what they did today, and now you're looking at FlyQuest as an opponent, and you're like, well, they could everything from the
Anything's
Smite
up.
top laners
Exactly.
to what we saw today. Like, what a horribly difficult prep week for TL.
Yeah, that is a rough prep week. Fortunately, I think Bwipo would respond well to a Smite top, actually.
He already is trying to build Hullbreaker.
Yeah, like I think his understanding of side, like, and overall TL's actually general understanding of side lanes is quite good. But Bwipo in particular is willing to stay in the side lane and just chill with Hullbreaker.
If he wants to, he's going to pick Tryndamere again. You don't let him do it. So, like, I definitely see, I think we'll see more of a standard look from FlyQuest, which is going to be nice, especially after their game versus Golden Guardians, where they weren't able to get that kind of same lead early. So, yeah, I think we'll see a different look. And I mean, they're already looking damn good after the TSM game. So it's the FlyQuest supremacy. Anyone out there, if you're a fan, thumbs up. If you're not, become one, I
The
guess.
environment, the
True.
small carbon footprint.
Save the trees, the bees, the seas, and you're getting a lot of W's along the way.
You were so, it was so good. It was so
There you go.
smooth, and then it all.
I don't know
And then
where
it
I don't know
just
where I was
got
going
A little
to
bit
end
of
that.
that at the end. All right.
I'm not a
Well,
rapper.
we're wrapping up here in the LCS studio. Our friends in Proving Grounds are just getting started. So, more than 50 teams actually applied to compete in the Proving Ground Circuit qualifier, and today the final 32 will be announced on stream at twitch.tv/unifiedlive. Check it out and support the next generation of League gods. But that's going to do it for the LCS today. So on behalf of myself, the casters, the entire live broadcast crew, thank you so much for watching. We'll catch you tomorrow for more LCS. Until then, stay healthy, stay safe, and be good to each other. Good night.
You don't have a pen?
Here.
No pen.
Direction that Ari's headed.
Blue, you're in trouble, buddy, and he's gone. EG with control over the river. They are totally unafraid. Frost just died. There you go. Someday with the flash, and he gets the heal as well from the Q. Closers ready to clean it up. That was close.
This is the best looking 0-0. Never mind. Turtle from downtown, baby. He's still got it.
IMT want their first win in 7 games, and they're looking for it here. FBI in the stasis, trying to buy himself some time, but he's already down. Who he is down? Immortals.
Centauran is down, could not find a corpse. Explosive cast, Rocket 1 is not a threat, but the red buff. Now they're gonna try in the 2 versus 4, do everything they possibly can, but Bjergsen, or Berserker, doesn't have the damage. Azonius for a second. GA popped on 1, that's the kill. That's gonna be the ace, that's everyone down. 2 levels on Contracts. Contracts hits the smite though. Chipping in for a bit more though, is the Sinjao kicked into the tower, and as you mentioned, scales with player skill. Almost finds it, but no! Diving in to kill the turrets, now diving in to kill the AD carry, and that's gonna be it. That's gonna be the kills that you need.
Right in the jungle, though, Shenyi finds himself on the opposite side of Josedeodo and friends. Cataclysm followed up by aphromoo. Almost everyone except for the support. Wow. That's it. You go to sleep, into the grave, right under the turret. Don't even need the rocket. Not even 25 minutes yet, Jatt. We're already knocking on the doors. Huni with the last stand, right there in the back. Rocket slicing through nobody because there's not a single face left.